Hi, how you doing? It's Aaron. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace the brake pads and brake rotors on your Nissan Versa. And I'm also going to be showing you guys a couple tips when you do so, how to prolong the life of the pads and the general health of the braking system. This happens to be a 2010 Nissan Versa, but it's just about the same for most of the years. So I'm going to show you guys the tools you're going to need to do the job, and the procedures that is needed as well. So here's the tools you're going to need to replace your brake pads and rotors. 14 millimeter wrench or socket. I got a couple different ways of compressing your piston and your caliper, and I'll explain those in a minute. 17 millimeter socket, 21 millimeter socket to remove your OEM lug nuts, and then of course a 1/2 inch wrench for your 17 millimeter socket. But before I begin, please, if this video is helpful to you or you like it, hit like or subscribe or both. And then if you guys got something to say, or you want to start a conversation about how you've done the job differently, please leave a comment in the comment section. Okay, first step is to remove this little liner here, or the hubcap. If you have OEM wheels, you're gonna need to remove this to expose your lug nuts. There's 4 of them on here. So go ahead, pry this off, and that'll give you access to your lug. Now that we got the hubcap off, you're going to see your 4 lug nuts. It's a 21 millimeter socket that you're going to need. I'm using an impact gun. If you have a standard lug wrench, that's fine too. Just make sure the vehicle's still on the ground so the tire doesn't rotate. So go ahead and remove those. Alright, now once we have our wheel off, next step is to remove 2 14 millimeter headed bolts. One at the top of the caliper, one at the bottom of the caliper. There's what they look like. You're going to need 14 millimeter wrench or socket to remove those. When you do, set them aside. Now we're free to take our caliper off of our hub or off of our rotor, and I like to hang it using a little piece of wire or a coat hanger or something like that. Just be careful not to have your hose stretched. You don't want it hanging down like this. That puts a lot of tension on the hose, and it could possibly crack and break. You definitely don't want that. So go ahead and hang the caliper through that bolt, just like that. Alright, now that we have our caliper safe and out of the way, make sure it's not going to drop, we're going to need to compress this piston, and there's a couple ways you could do that. You can go down to O'Reilly or Napa Advanced, Pep Boys, and buy yourself a caliper piston compressor. Basically that just goes in there like that. You get the brake pad on there and you do that. Or what I do with most vehicles is use a C-clamp. You could use some channel locks too to get in here and squeeze it. I'm sure I could probably do it by hand, but go ahead and compress that piston. Make sure when you compress it, it's going in there nice and even and it's not cockeyed. It could really damage the caliper when that happens. Piston is pressed back into its spot. You can go ahead and remove your old brake pads, give them a good inspection. These ones aren't too bad, they're just making a ton of noise. Probably about a little less than half-life. That one, check it out. Yeah, I got a little life left, but we're gonna go ahead and replace them. Now, looking back here, you're gonna remove these 2 21, or actually a 17 millimeter socket. We'll get these off, remove that, and that'll get this bracket right out of the way. Alright, now that you removed those 2 bolts that hold on your caliper mounting bracket, you can go ahead and toss that aside. Don't let it go too far because we're going to do something with these pins. Now you can take your old rotor off, and what we're going to do right now is compare them to the new rotors to make sure they're the same exact part before we go any further. And it looks like they are the same. So now we're going to proceed with the next step, which is degreasing these. When they come new out of the box in this bag, they're loaded up with a bunch of grease, basically just to prevent any type of corrosion or surface rust. We need to get that off because that's going to contaminate our new brake pads right there, which we don't want to do. So some rotors don't come with grease, but I like to wash them anyways, or oil on there, so I like to wash them anyways just to make sure they're nice and clean, ready for our new brake pads. We definitely don't want any problems with all this money we're investing into the vehicle, so go ahead, give these a good wash. If you don't have brake cleaner, one thing you can use is some hot soap and water. Just make sure you dry them off right away, or they will start to flash rust. Now that we got our rotor nice and clean, we're going to go ahead and grease up these slide pins. You'll see these boots that are over the slide pin. Careful, if those are torn, you want to get them replaced because the grease will actually leak, but just a little bit of pressure, go ahead and remove the bolt. And what you're going to want to do is clean that really good. Get all that old grease and grime off there. See how that's black? That's definitely not good. Now that we got it all clean, go ahead and dip it in some fresh wheel bearing grease, just like that. Not too much. But basically, as the vehicle brakes and moves, this pin goes back and forth really quickly. And if there's no grease in there, that bolt will actually seize right into this mounting bracket, which you'll have to buy a new one, and you have to buy new slide pins. So make sure you do that. That's just something good, something that I get a habit of when I'm doing brake jobs, is to service those. That's just another problem that we can prevent going on down the road. Now that we got our new rotor on, you can see it's nice and clean. We got our caliper mounting bracket that we're going to put on. Those two bolts, go ahead and stick them on and get them good and tight. I believe the factory spec is 89 foot-pounds of torque. Now that we have our caliper mounting bracket on, you can see the comparison between the two, old versus new. Quite a difference there. So it looks like we were less than half on our brake light. Right now we're ready to install our new brake pads. Some brake kits, some brake pad kits, you'll notice these right here. These are your wear indicators, and when the brake pad wears, it goes down and it'll hit this bar, which will create a loud noise, which then tells you that your brake pad's almost ready for replacement. So sometimes you'll notice that you only get 2 brake pads in a 4 set that have these wear indicators. Make sure you put those pads with the wear indicators on the inside. Generally, those are the brake pads that wear the most. Now that we've installed our brake pads, you're free to put your rotor back on and tighten up your bolts up here with your 14mm socket or wrench. If your caliper doesn't go on easy, you may have to compress that piston a little bit more into its hole a little bit to get them around the new brake pads. Since the brake pads and rotors are new, they're going to be larger. So that's just something to keep in mind. Alright, last step is going to be to get in the vehicle, and before you do anything as far as going anywhere, go ahead, start it up, make sure it's in park, and depress the brake pedal as many times as it takes. Should be around 4 to 5 to get the pedal nice and firm. Since we compress those calipers, there's a little bit of room between the brake pad and rotor, and we want to take up that room before we go anywhere, or else you won't be able to brake right away. So go ahead and press it down, make sure the pedal is firm. All done. Once you got your caliper mounted back on, throw your wheel back on and your hubcap and take it for a drive before you go any long distances. Make sure, you know, braking distance normal, no strange noises or anything like that. So as you can see, it's a pretty easy job with some hand tools and an impact. I use an impact gun just for it's a little quicker. Hope this video has helped you out. If it has, please like and subscribe. See you guys next time.